Drop by drop, the Sandy River erupts on the slopes of Mount Hood, bound for the Pacific Ocean, pouring itself through the Cascade Range and into the Columbia River 50 miles away. It's a liquid highway for salmon.
The thought is that they migrate by a sense of smell. It's probably more than that. It'd be absolutely impossible for a human being to navigate without instrumentation 2,000 miles out in the ocean and then find their way back, into this river. So they're biologically programmed to survive in circumstances that we probably don't even understand.
For almost 100 years, Portland General Electric, PGE, has harnessed the river at Marmot Dam. 20th century technologies, like this fish ladder, help salmon over the 50-foot face. But new requirements to protect endangered species mean that modernizing the system of fish protections is prohibitively expensive.
Our customers expect us to do the right thing, and if a project cannot be run economically and protect the salmon, they expect us to remove the project.
So PGE is planning the largest dam removal in Oregon history. It's no simple task.
There's a lot of things that we don't know that we'll learn as we actually see it take place. There could be some bumps in the road on their way to the promised land.
The project's biggest unknown lies in the reservoir behind Marmot. Over the decades, 1 million cubic yards of sand, gravel, and boulders, enough to fill 100,000 dump trucks, eroded from Mount Hood and became trapped against the dam's concrete wall. Today, the deposits taper upstream for more than a mile, burying the Sandy's former channel beneath it.
The reservoir behind the dam is effectively filled up, so that sediment is actually stacked just about to the lip of the dam.
With the dam gone, the debris would become a 5-story roadblock to fish. It too must be taken out. But how?
In most of the dam removals that have occurred to date, you get down here with a backhoe and a dump truck and you cart the sediment away prior to the removal.
That's a problem in a river that supports endangered species of salmon.
The more sediment you remove behind the dam, the more time you're in the river. The more time you're in the river, the longer the effect is on the aquatic community downstream.
To protect salmon habitat, work in the river is limited to a 4-month period during low flows.
We basically have to do this job in about half the time that normally would take under normal conditions. It'll take 6 and 7 days a week and some long hours to get finished and meet the October deadline.
That's not enough time to make 36 billion pounds of sand and gravel disappear with backhoes. So PGE has come up with an unconventional plan. Focus the energy of a fall rainstorm against the sediment and let the river cart it away before salmon return to spawn.
It's got to be clear enough that we have fish passage again.
The catch? No one's ever tried this on a grand scale.
There's never been a human-constructed dam coming off a river that has involved this much release of sediment. We've never seen what happens when 1 million cubic yards of sediment comes down a river all at once. Most people think about dams in their role as holding back water, but Marmot Dam doesn't really do that. It diverts water where it's used for hydroelectric production.
Marmot was built to send flows into a canal that tunnels through a mountain, the Devil's Backbone, and joins water diverted from the Little Sandy River into a 3-mile wooden flume ending at Roslyn Lake, 160 acres of potential energy. From here, it tumbles into the Bull Run powerhouse with enough force to make electricity for up to 16,000 homes.
I'm quite impressed by the engineers of 100 years ago. These guys didn't have any of the modern tools. They didn't have electronic surveying instruments. They didn't have aerial photos. And yet they managed somehow to engineer these very efficient systems for capturing water, diverting it, and using it to generate hydroelectric power, which was the marvel of the age.
Workers began construction on Marmot in the summer of 1912. Wilderness was their hardware store, stocked with stones and timbers.
So much of this stuff was done by hand, and horsepower. Very little mechanical stuff except some steam equipment.
They finished 7 months later in February of 1913.
It's a legacy project to us. It was one of our first hydro projects.
The original dam endured the river's pounding for 3/4 of a century, until 1989, when contractor Nat McDougall replaced the weakening structure with concrete and rebar. Now he's back to bring it down.
This dam was built to last, not to be torn out 20 years after it was built. This is very hard for me personally to take this thing out, and it's going to be an experience for us that's not easy to do.
His first challenge is to isolate Marmot from the river so deconstruction can begin. Crews lay a road-sized strip of sand and gravel across the reservoir. Inside it, they install wells and pumps through 50 feet of sediment to the riverbed. The result is a coffer dam, an ingenious piece of engineering that turns wet earth into a dry barrier as long as the pumps stay on.
We're working behind a temporary dam. If any kind of failure were to occur, it would be a fairly major catastrophe. Trying to pump the water out and control that water, that is the biggest single risk we have.
Months from now, if the coffer dam functions as planned, it could also play a starring role in solving the sediment problem. Until then, there are a few details to settle. That's why PGE has asked Gordon Grant to lead a team of scientists on an unusual mission.
So we're standing out here on a glorious summer day in Oregon, but halfway across the country, in the bowels of a dark laboratory right along the banks of the Mississippi River, they're building a model of this river.
On the campus of the University of Minnesota, at the National Center for Earth Surface Dynamics, researchers prepare a scale model of the Sandy where it meets Marmot Dam.
On the face of it, the model is a very simple system. You've got a topography, you feed it water, you feed it a mixture of fine sand and gravel, and gravity does its magic, and that's it. But what is fascinating about it is that the model, with those simple elements, comes to life.
All right, well, let's take the dam out.
As in the real world, once Marmot is removed, the coffer dam becomes the center of attention. A fall storm hits. In the field, managers must decide if it's the right size to wash out the sediment.
I see water coming. It's starting to rain.
The river rises against the coffer dam.
It's like a horse pawing at the stall door. That horse is going to run.
Workers remove the pumps that keep it dry and stable.
Get ready.
They notch it to focus the river's energy, and they seal off the canal to boost flows.
Okay, here we go.
Water charges out of its only exit.
Oh, you look at there, underneath. Look at that, underneath, there it goes. Wow, look at that thing go! Woo!
As the coffer dam collapses, the Sandy rips through sand and gravel in the reservoir, opening a channel for fish. Over the next month, Gordon and his team will run many more scenarios as they seek out the ideal conditions for carving away the most sediment. In the meantime, there's a dam to take down.
This all started a long time ago. There's a lot of engineering involved to design where the holes are going to be, how many holes, how much explosive weight is going to go in each hole.
Demolition experts peck into the top quarter of Marmot, preparing the first of 4 blasts to fracture its concrete.
There's a very heavy rebar mat on 1-foot centers, both directions, horizontal and vertical. So it's a real challenge to get a hole in the right spot.
At the base of the dam, biologists have their own slippery challenge. Now that the river's diverted around Marmot, the fish ladder is out of service, and salmon are stranded.
Some of them are very large. We had some fish that were a little over 40 pounds.
They've raced thousands of miles back from the ocean to spawn in the gravels of their birth before they die. With just miles to go, these creatures risk burning up the last of their energy.
We call it a fish rodeo because it is. You have a lot of people, you have a lot of fish, they're zipping all over the place, you're chasing them around with a net, they catch them, and it's always a challenge to get them out. You don't want to hurt them, and you've got to get them back in the water as fast as you can.
Wranglers speed the salmon to habitat above Marmot, just in time. The demo team is rigging up 4 tons of explosives.
Once you get it all loaded, then you've got people out there hooking them in. You've got people going behind the people hooking them in to check to make sure they were hooked in right.
A community of political leaders, conservationists, and reporters arrives to commemorate the dam's last stand.
Put the shot and shell primer in the mushroom starter. When you hit the primer, it will ignite the lead-in line, and the lead-in line goes out and ignites the shot.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about 1/2 hour away from our event.
This shot has been checked at least 4 times by 4 different people to make sure that there was no mistakes made, that it was going to go exactly the way it was designed.
Are we ready?
In this business, you can't not help but be superstitious.
Portland General Electric's CEO, Peggy Fowler, is about to make history.
3, 2, 1.
On a project like this, it's a big day when the first shot goes off, because it means not only can we really start doing what we're here for, but we'll be able to see just how difficult it's going to be to break this stuff and dig it and get it out of here.
Marmot is a stout 25,000-ton fortress laced with 200,000 pounds of steel rebar. And just now, more than a few cracks. Crews and heavy equipment take it on like ants at a picnic.
It's just like having your hand out there. I mean, you're in total control. You know, you can pick up a piece of 1-inch rebar between the teeth and the thumb and sort it out. I could probably pick the hair off the top of your head with it, if you had any.
The debris is destined for reuse. A crusher turns concrete to road fill. Metal scrap lands in an electric arc furnace. 70 million watts of energy make it new again. And day by day, the dam grows smaller.
Shot prepared to fire in 5 seconds. Larry, are you clear?
All clear.
It's on the way.
It'll take about 2 more weeks to get rid of this and the rebar, remove the rest of the material on the back side of the dam. At that point, we pretty much clear the site, wait for the rains to come in the fall. When the rains come in the fall, they wash out the coffer dam. What happens then, as the material migrates downstream, is something we're all waiting to see.
In just 3 months, Marmot disappears. What's left behind is a mountain of sediment and a cofferdam holding back a river, quiet before the storm.
There's nothing predicted in a long-range forecast. So we could be as late as, October 15th. Waiting on a storm. The perfect storm.
On a day like today, we can easily wade across the river and barely get wet. But if we come out here in a couple of weeks, the flows will just be booming through here. So don't be fooled by the bibbly-babbly brook. It's really a very powerful river.
The Sandy is also a flashy river. When rains move through, water levels rise and fall quickly, increasing the tension around a high-stakes decision.
The choice of storm is going to be a one-time shot. We're not going to have a second chance. When we choose a storm, right, wrong, or indifferent, we're going to breach the cofferdam.
The choice may be at hand. The National Weather Service in Portland is tracking an early storm season.
Normally in the Pacific Northwest, we get some nice weather in the fall. This year, man, we just went from summer to winter.
PGE has asked forecasters for help, but that's no simple matter.
Sometimes around here, it's difficult to figure out whether or not it's going to rain. It's a challenge just to get a handle on the storm systems that are coming in. You break that down to the Sandy, just a small area, a couple hundred square miles, and is it going to rain in that little river basin? If so, how much? Is it enough to really cause a significant rise on the river? That's a tough question for us to deal with.
A storm that's too big will swamp the chance to guide as much sediment as possible through a notch in the cofferdam.
It's been designed to handle a certain amount of flow, and above that it's going to wash out regardless of what we do.
If the storm is too small, the sediment will stall, slowly bleeding into the river.
Hopefully we can maintain the cofferdam until it's an event that's big enough to really move this material.
After years of hard work, opening a channel for endangered fish depends on a little help from Mother Nature.
We know the sediment will move out. We know it'll move out at a rate that's been determined by what the flows are going to be and the duration of the flows. With no ability to predict those, we really don't know what's going to happen.
To prepare for the unexpected, biologists activate plans to protect the Sandy's most endangered fish, 18 miles below the cofferdam.
Hold on to a sec. Pull it tight a little bit. Oh, we got one.
Today we're here collecting 20 pair of fall Chinook salmon as an emergency program, basically in case the worst case scenario happens, since we're in essentially a race before the dam gets breached.
If sediment jams the river, the eggs of spawning fish could suffocate and die here. So biologists deliver breeding pairs to the Sandy hatchery as a precaution.
We'll spawn those fish at the hatchery, raise the juveniles until spring, and then release them back into the river so they'll naturally out-migrate to the ocean.
The backup plan is timely. Overnight, rains have filled the reservoir behind the cofferdam.
This morning on my way out, I got a call just before I turned into the access road, and I was told the river was at 1900 CFS, so I drove a little faster on the access road getting in here.
A surprising 850,000 gallons of water a minute is now pulsing down the Sandy.
It was not what it was supposed to be. When I looked this morning around 4 a.m., it was close to 1,000 CFS. I thought, okay, the rain is letting up, looks like we're okay. 1900 CFS is the design for the cofferdam on what it's designed to hold back. Any higher than that, it's anybody's guess.
The river has pushed the cofferdam to its limit and created an urgent problem.
Are you comfortable still having equipment come across here?
No, the bridge washed out on that back corner there, and it sunk probably a foot.
The bridge over the diversion canal is failing, and the project confronts its most serious crisis.
We've now isolated the cofferdam with no way to get equipment back out there to deal with the pumps, the casings, that's unacceptable.
The rains pause, opening a window of valuable time to mobilize crews.
Call now to the forecast, see if they're thinking that this stall in the flows is going to last long enough.
National Weather Service, Portland.
This is Andy.
Hi, Andy. Tim Keller here. I got John Essler, too.
Hi, Andy.
Hello.
Well, do we have a forecast yet?
We do.
The Forecast Center is tracking another storm.
The models are more and more pointing towards development along this part of the frontal band, and that's going to be the player for tonight.
So Tim, looking at the hydrograph, this looks like the one that's going to do it.
The crest is 2500 at 5 p.m.
Oh, boy.
And then actually going higher.
We're not going to hold off the breach. It's going to go to 2500.
We got to keep going.
We got to get going.
All right, Andy. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Because the bridge can no longer support heavy machinery, notching the cofferdam has become more complex.
Looking at the bridge, with the water coming up as fast as it is, it's hard to tell, if the forklift's going to do what we need it to do. Hopefully, it'll all go good and nobody will get hurt out here.
The first step is to remove the pumps, carefully but quickly.
Once we get out there and pull the first pump on there, we in a sense have lit the fuse. And the integrity of that section of the cofferdam is weakening as we speak. At that point, you can't count on that cofferdam.
As the project enters its final hours, Gordon Grant is eager to see how the river performs.
Removing this dam up till now has been all about big machines and big dirt. People coming in, digging the old dam out, exploding it up, transforming the space through machinery. But starting this afternoon, we move to a whole new rhythm and a whole new cycle, where it's the river that will do the work. The river will cut down, the river will move the sediment, and what we're left with will be up to the river and not up to the machine.
With the pumps out of the way, Art begins the delicate task of cutting a notch.
It would have been neat to watch it from a distance, I think. On top of it, it's nerve-wracking. What if the thing does wash out under me? You know, that's the biggest problem I was having, is what happens then?
There are some big doings happening underneath that thing. Look at that. That is very cool.
Hey, Dave, you got a copy?
I got it.
Hey, Dave, we need to get going. We need the rocks in the canal now.
Okay, here we go.
All right, 10-4.
Workers block the diversion canal, kicking up flows by another 200,000 gallons a minute.
This is just going to explode on us. You can hear it. Wow. Whoa! This is the geological knife right here. Holy smokes. Watch yourself here, gentlemen.
The crew scrambles.
As we're backing up, all of a sudden the dam just lets go in a spot probably 10, 15 feet across. It just washes out in front of you. That's definitely the most nerve-wracking time of it.
I can feel it. I can feel the ground moving too. I'm speechless. I have never seen anything like this.
By nightfall, the Sandy has cut itself free.
People have worked many, many months and years on trying to figure out exactly how this would happen. And to finally see it come to pass, I think it just gives everybody a great sense of satisfaction.
Next morning, Gordon's back.
It's gone! Unbelievable. The whole thing. The river took it all. One night. It's like the river doesn't even remember that there was a dam here.
18 hours have ticked away since the notch was cut, and the river has digested 110,000 tons of sediment, some of it locked in place for nearly a century.
Yeah, there's a hint of sulfur in the air, and I think it's coming from all the organics that have been buried under this reservoir for, I don't know, 80, 90 years.
But the reservoir's gone. The dam is no more. This is a river transformed.
The site is very quickly returning to a natural state. 2 days after the dam went out, as I was standing upstream of here, I saw a paracoho. To me, a small indication of how quickly this system is recovering.
As part of the restoration, 1,500 acres of PGE project lands will become the keystone for a new special recreation area of national significance, a wild river refuge.
We borrowed the river's energy for 100 years. We used it to light our houses, to run our computers, but yesterday the river took it back.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.